Good to see you guys. So yeah, Tim Nellett, Marine Corps vet. I was a dirty 0311 back in the day, years
Yeah.
and years ago now. Good. We got some other animals in the crowd. That's good to hear. Um, then wound my way over to U of M. Never thought I'd be there. Would not have gotten in or succeeded there without military service. So definitely sucked some of those 4 years, but would not trade it for the world. It worked out extremely well. Just like my whole life would have not been this trajectory without it. As some of you guys are probably experiencing that right now. Um, got there and started working at kind of communications degree. The initial goal was to become a video game journalist. Still like the secret, like would love to do that low key sometime, but not quite the direction things ended up taking. I was about this close to doing a internship over the summer of my junior year with Game Informer to do exactly that. And about the same time, I started getting involved with SVA. I for context, I transferred into U of M, so I did a couple years community college first, and I wasn't involved in any veteran stuff. There wasn't really veteran stuff going on at those schools, and I just got out, and I was just kind of like, I just want to be a civilian. I don't want to be military affiliated anymore. Just want to do my own thing. And then I started to miss that camaraderie. I was obviously, as you guys understand, older in my classes, particularly those like gen ed classes. I was like 24, they were 19 or 18, and like had no understanding of my experience whatsoever. So it was like, oh my God, I feel like Billy Madison. Hopefully, you guys still get that reference. Very much felt like that. And then started getting involved with SVA. I was like, oh my God, okay, like found my people. This is awesome. And then at the time, like started meeting folks at the university who were doing specific work in that space. So like Phil Larson doing the student veteran stuff, and I was just like, hey, how like I didn't even know this existed as a job. Like I didn't know this was even a career field people could go, and I never thought of higher ed as a potential job to do after college. And so I was like, how the heck do I do that? So I reached out to him, like started building that relationship, started working for him as a student employee. And at the same time, I started with PAVE, which you guys are probably familiar with since it's in U of M's back door, backyard, better to speak. And I was the first team leader for PAVE at U of M. Back then it was 4 schools. Now it's like 50 across the country or something like that. And that ended up being like a low key paid internship because I got close to graduating and they were looking to hire a program coordinator. And I had expressed interest in wanting to move into veteran services as a career field. And so, who then became my boss, she reached out and was like, "Hey, we got this job position. I think you should apply for it." I almost didn't, like an idiot, and then realized it's exactly what I wanted to do, and someone was handing it to me. So I went for it, got that job, switched to full time, worked unpaid for several years. That's where I met Amy and some other awesome folks in the larger office there, doing a bunch of things for military folks. Uh, Worked with a ton of different schools. Like I said, we blew up. We started with 4 schools. By the time I was out of there, we were at 42, and so I got to meet other campuses, other SVAs, and other veteran services coordinators or directors are doing this work across the country. Got to pick their brain a lot and build relationships. And then that was like really the key for me of like figuring out, okay, how do I figure out that next step? What is it going to be? And I knew I wanted to do veteran services at a college or university. And so I looked at my peers and also mentors and like what were they doing to set themselves up in that space. And the next thing was grad school. So applied, got into Eastern Michigan University's higher education student affairs program. Did that nights and weekends while I was still working at PAVE. And right about the time I wrapped that up, I was moving to Colorado, anyways. And so started looking for work out there. And the director for veteran services position at University of Northern Colorado was open. Applied and got that job. Did that for about 3 years, and now, weirdly enough, I'm running the Center for Career Readiness at this school. So kind of a bit pivot, but I've realized like a lot of the stuff I had learned in those other positions translated well into this work, just in the terms of like managing folks, supporting students, like helping get them the resources they need. This was all super applicable to the veterans students that I was working with, but also with just students in general, right? So like that transferred over pretty well. I've been doing that for almost a year now. To get past the boring stuff, like the stuff that I think is probably more interesting to you all is like, how did you do this? Some things I like kind of just jotted down, really thinking about this work is like how it all happened. Like you kind of took from what I just told you, the path was a little windy. I didn't quite know where I was going at any given point. And I think that's fine. The exploration piece is key. Um, Aligning what you want to do with like your strengths, your interests, and your values, I think is super important. There's not necessarily like I think there's a kind of a misconception with college in general of like I'm going to go to school and I'm going to go get this degree and it's going to get me this job. And I think in some technical training aspects that is definitely true, but just like the amount of doors that are going to open for you guys from just having that initial degree is insane, more than you think, more than you will ever possibly realize. And so it's like aligning kind of like, okay, all of these doors have opened. Which one do I actually want to step through? Which one aligns best with the work I want to do going forward? Another thing that was super important was like that getting involved piece. Like I would have not have went down this trajectory whatsoever had I not just said screw it and gone to an SVA meeting, not knowing anybody beforehand. You guys have already done that step, so you're already on the right track. But like finding your people, on campus, finding your support system. Don't go it alone. Learning from each other, supporting one another, building relationships. Doesn't mean be extroverted. It doesn't mean be super social. It just means like getting involved, finding what you're interested in, and it doesn't have to just be SBA. I think it's a great launching pad for new student vets, but finding other things on campus too that interest you and making connections there because you never know quite how things are going to pan out. I wasn't considering running a career center in the last year or so until like for someone I'd already made a connection with at our school was like, hey, I think you'd be a good fit for this, and we're gonna have an opening soon. I think you should apply. If that hadn't happened, I might still be at Veteran Services. If I hadn't connected with SVA and Phil and Frets and all those different folks back in the olden days of 2012, I wouldn't be on the track that I'm on now of like working in higher ed. So it's like creating opportunities for you to learn from others and for folks to see the value and all the awesome stuff you bring is super key. Also cannot stress mentors enough. Find them and then maintain those relationships. Don't make it just like I found this person who does what I want to do and like they seem to like me and they're going to do my letter of rec, which is super cool. Like beyond that, you want to take it to the next level. So that's like just meeting regularly, just like checking in, grabbing lunch, nothing super intensive, and don't always make the meeting about like what you need from them. They are definitely going to want to help you get what you need, but building that relationship so it's not just kind of this one-way street of like, oh, I know if Tim's reaching out to me, it's just because he needs me to be a reference for him. Like, but no, he actually like is wanting to learn and wanting to build that up. Another big one is utilizing resources you have access to. You probably hear this all the time because I certainly did as a U of M student of like, you have this amazing suite of resources at the University of Michigan you have access to. That is definitely true. They don't do a damn thing for you unless you actually use them, right? So your career center, shocker, I'm going to push that because that's what I do now. But just like any and everything that's available, like you have to seek it out. I think that's one of the tougher parts for vets coming out of the military and going to college is that like the stuff isn't going to necessarily come to you, and you're definitely not going to be forced to do it. And you just have to kind of swallow your pride and ask for help because that's actually like a sign of strength rather than a sign of weakness. Is figuring out who these folks are. They're like trained and paid salaries to like help you do awesome things, and just make sure like you're using their time and their resources that are available to you to do that. If a good example is like I was going for a part-time job in between my first and second year of college, and I hadn't really done that at all, right? Like I went straight in the Marine Corps at 17, got out in 21. So like I just didn't know anything about that crap. And I had a buddy of mine like coach me over the phone of like working on a resume, at what questions to ask at interviews, like even just like how to dress and how to act and like the ins and outs of that stuff. Like I wouldn't have known any of this. Especially wouldn't have known it if I hadn't been like, hey, I actually don't know what to expect for this. Like, can you help me out? So always be asking for help, but there's nothing wrong with it. Highly encouraging. Okay, I will shut up. What are your questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Tim?
Yeah, hey Tim, just a quick one here. I'm just curious, like, how you ran into your mentor while you were in undergrad, and if I'm curious too, if you're still like in touch or close like today. What was that process kind of like?
Yeah. So part of it really did start with SVA. So getting like coming to that first meeting, getting past kind of that initial trepidation, and then just like shooting the shit, asking questions, getting to know more about like what they do for a living. And that led to more conversations about like what I want to do going forward and like how I want to get there. And this, so that like that led to that student employment piece at U of M doing that job, and then also led to PAVE. Like at the time it was kind of like a general call for student vets at U of M that had interest in participating in this new pilot program. There's like a small stipend for it. It really was like a paid internship is kind of what it turned into. But like it would have been like just another random email in my Gmail until like Phil was like, hey, this seems to line up really well with what we'd already talked about and like what you want to do next. Are you interested in applying to it? And that step would not have occurred had we not already been talking about this. I think outside of SVA in that capacity, there's like you, and again, you guys probably heard this before too, like the actually like talking with professors about stuff offline, about like their path, like what they want to do, if it aligns at all with like what your, not only what your major is, but like what you maybe want to do next, career wise. That they, most of them are going to want to talk about what they're interested in because they're all huge nerds. We all are. You get interested in something and then you're just going to want to talk about it all the time. So like picking someone's brain, and it may be tough at first, it may be a little awkward. It also may not be a good fit right off the bat with that specific person. The nice part is that especially at a school as big as Michigan, there's usually not one professor or one staff person on campus who's doing like only that thing. So like I would just keep pushing and keep working at it.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? I will say, Tim, you do have a karaoke at Cirque competitor in the attendance today.
Oh man, that's tough. No, actually, someone should be carrying on the torch because I can't be there anymore, and it makes me deeply sad. Highly, one of the things, I don't know if you guys do this, but like our PR guy when I was the SVA officer was just like, people would always be asking what we want to do, and it's just come to like Thursday or Fridays, like I'm just picking a place and telling people, we're just putting the word out there and like just rally up here, and like the rest was kind of history. It's like it makes me very happy to like be able to talk with you guys like this, because like just like there's an involvement there that's still going on like 12 years later now, which is absolutely insane. Please give Andrew as much crap as possible, just because like I went to school with his older brother, and so that's this hilarious legacy thing, and like he has so much to live up to. And the fact that you guys just had a national championship and we had Devin Gardner when I was there is something that really stinks. But yeah, you didn't go through the Hoke era. I didn't even want to get into that, but this is cool. You guys should keep doing this. If you, and also if you need recs for like other alums to talk to, I can help with that too. This is good stuff. Yeah.
I got a question. So my interest in doing stuff related to my degree is pretty limited. So I'm
Okay.
trying to pivot to something more like business development, strategic stuff, that is more relationship focused, people focused, while also being like technically conversant. I'm an industrial and operations engineering major.
Okay.
I've got opportunities to do, manufacturing and auto, and I kind of want to do more like defense tech. So I guess in terms of like trying to make that pivot, it's hard because I don't have like some of like the requirements I don't have, but
Mhm.
I feel that like my experience as as an officer in the SVA, some of the fundraising stuff that I've done, the relationships I've built with, donors and that sort of thing, and then sales background like 10, 15 years ago. Like any advice for like how to translate that into, like a business development role within defense?
Yeah. So the key word you said is translate. So that's a big one. That's going to be applicable to all of you guys. Is like the biggest thing we see in my current role running the career center, is that all students will come in, vets and non-vets will come in and be like, I only did X or I only did Y. When at the end of the day, you guys did a lot of awesome stuff. It's actually super easy having this conversation with vets because you guys did crazy things that like most people your age will never do. And it's just a matter of translating that, because a lot of folks aren't going to understand the significance of the work you did until it's put in a way, either through resume, cover letter, or interview, that matches what their understanding of that work is. So like sometimes there's like that's just quantifying the crap out of it, right? Like silly things like, yeah, okay, I was in charge of, I was, crew chief on this particular. I'm not an aviation guy, so I'm not going to fake it. As a crew chief for an Osprey, right? So we'll just say that. And then like someone who isn't a vet isn't going to know even what an Osprey is probably, and they definitely don't know what a crew chief is. So then you have to be like, I was an aviation like crew manager for a plane, that was worth this much money for this period of time, and just always trying to throw numbers into it. So like the initial part of your question, like really just like translating, like I think always we're just trying to not dumb it down, but really layman's terms as much as humanly possible and apply numbers to whatever you're talking about. The other piece you mentioned about like how like pivoting and not necessarily having every single credential, let them decide that. So like always be putting like giving yourself chances to get yourself out there and let them figure out if like you are exactly what they're looking for. A lot of times when I see this a lot because I've been rebuilding the team over here and I'm on some search committees for other positions. Like we get stuff all the time where someone wants to be a career counselor, for example, and you might think, okay, like, well, you're probably going to hire the person who has been a career counselor somewhere else, or they went to school for career counseling. And like, objectively, that will move their resume further up the pile. But we're also looking at other things that will help in this role, even if it's not directly like applicable lived experience. So for your example, like that previous sales experience, if you're looking at business development, like that's definitely like relevant, even if it's old, because you have the experience of connecting with people, getting them to like meet you at the table about potentially buying something. And like, as most people know, like that's tough. Someone comes to my door and says, I want to sell you something. I'm immediately like, thanks, but no thanks. Close that sucker. You also you have a unique skill set in the sense that like you're going to be combining military service and a college education. Military service is already like super rare across the country as it is. And then you're going to make yourself stand out in the sense that like you are combining those two things, which makes you even rarer out in the field. And taking in previous lived experience, like you mentioned with the sales stuff. What I also recommend is and I don't know if this is still the case, but like we used to have a decently strong pipeline in this space at U of M specifically. I can think of a couple guys who ended up at Raytheon. And so not even necessarily connecting with them, but if the SVA is able to advocate to Raytheon, like it's in their interest to like come to campus and talk with you guys, making that happen, excuse me, even if it's just virtual, doing that too. And then just like beyond that, say like they making that connection with the person who represents the organization and talking about yourself and what you're interested in doing. Because even if it's not like a clear cut, like we have a job posting right now and you qualify for it and we're now going to have an interview, like it is in your best interest to ask that person questions, get a better sense of like what kind of candidates they're seeing and how you can set yourself up between now and when you are about to graduate, and like what can you do in the meantime to like better align all of your stuff in a way that's going to make that employer interested in talking to you.
Awesome. I like.
So I was super long-winded.
No, I think that's all, like, I was worried by asking my specific question that it would be too niche. But I think that really does speak to a lot of what everybody's gonna experience in their own situation, and especially that part about like seeking out ways to connect businesses that you're interested in with the campus as like the campus veteran population, especially because you believe there's value there. And then, oh, by the way, like, tell me about this company. Like I'm interested in this company. Generally speaking, like, can you give me insight as to like what your experience is like, and start building a relationship with someone that goes deeper than, hey, I want a job, give me a recommendation, like give me the job, kind of like transactional side of things. Like I like that. Trying to bring value to them first.
All right, Tim. Well, I think that's pretty much it for us. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, and I plan on touching base with you after the meeting. But
Yeah. Anytime. Happy to help you guys. Good luck with the rest of the semester, and just good to see you guys are doing well and you got a good crew over there. So keep it up, guys.